Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a early impression video on a house that I have a lot of time for. This is actually from the house of Histoires de Parfums, and the name of this fragrance is called Rare Veni. Now, I've actually had a couple fragrances in this range that we're going to talk about on the channel very soon. One is called Rare Petroleum, probably my least favorite from the brand, from the line, I should say. And this has grown on me a little bit. I don't hate it as much as I initially hated it when I first got it, but Rare Petroleum is very challenging to me. It almost smells like a fishy oud. Very strange. And then this one is actually probably one of my favorites from the line. It's called Rare Ambrarem. And this is an amber, as you can imagine. But this also uses animalic notes and stuff like that. But just a brilliantly done amber. One of my all-time favorite ambers of all time. And so we'll do a review on this rare as well. And if you go, interestingly enough, if you go to the Histoires de Parfums website, at least here in the United States, these are not on there anymore. So I don't know if they're discontinued. I don't know if they're only available in different parts of the world. I have no clue what's going on with these, but you can only buy 2 fragrances on the Histoires de Parfums website here in the United States. One is called Rare Fidelis, which I will be talking about on the channel. Whoops, how about we show it right side up? Well, I guess that was right side up. I put it in wrong. So Rare Fidelis we'll be talking about on the channel very soon as well. This is a Julian Rascanet creation, beautiful oud and coffee and stuff like that. And the other one that you can buy is Rare Veni. These are the 2. That's it. Those are the only 2 from the line that show up on the website. There's also another one which I have never smelled before called Rare Rosam. R-O-S-A-M. Rare Rosam. And that's sort of a floral oud, apparently, is what they call it. Never smelled that one, but the line, I have a lot of time for this house. I really like the house of Histoires de Parfums, and I also really like that they have not jacked their prices into the stratosphere yet. There's a lot of niche houses that have just gone AWOL with pricing. Their pricing still seems very, very respectable and fair nowadays. And the other thing I like is when you look the brand up on Parfumo, so like for example, go look up Rare Veni, and Gerard Ghislaine is the creative director. He's the brand owner and the creative director. They don't list him as the perfumer. He's actually listed as the creative director, which I think more brands need to take some of that, hint, hint. More brands need to take some of that, the founders / owners of the brand who claim to be the perfumers. If they know they're just the creative director, they should say they're the creative director and not the perfumer. Just one man's ramblings opinion on that. Okay, so before we get started, we are actually going to do a quick unboxing. And this unboxing comes thanks to my good friend Tom. Tom, thank you very much. And also I should say this video from this decant is brought to you by Nick. He very kindly sent me a 5mm decant. You can see I put a hell of a dent in this. Worn it multiple times to bed and wearing it as my scent of the day today. So 2 thank yous go out to folks from the channel, subscribers of the channel. Thank you very much. It would be very hard to do what I do without the generosity and kindness of the community. So these are samples from Tom. So let's see what Tom sent me. So I know what one of these is, but I don't know what the rest are. So let us see. Let's open this bad boy up, shall we? Okay, so first things first, we have, oh crap. We have, I don't know what we have. We might need like a handwriting expert on this one. I might have to get back to you on this one. Let's see what else we have. All right, this one, Tom Ford, Amber Absolute, one of my all-time favorite ambers. I'll review this one of these days. I love Amber Absolute. And then we have Gucci Guilty Oud. Okay, so Gucci Guilty Oud is different from Gucci Guilty Intense Oud. So the one I have is the Intense Oud, okay? They actually have a Gucci Guilty Oud, which looks like it came in a packaging that is very similar to this. And so if you know the great Gucci Guilty Absolute, which I still have to review on the channel one of these days, it comes in a bottle like this, but it's Gucci Guilty Oud. Different from Gucci Intense Oud, okay? Some people say they smell similar, but it's different. That's what this particular Gucci Guilty Oud is from. It's from the Guilty line of Ouds. And finally, we have another one, which I am not sure. Oh, it's because it leaked. Oh, crap. It got all over me. How am I going to do the review of Rare Veni with whatever this is all over me? This might be New Harlem. I'm going to guess that. I'm going to guess this is New Harlem. That's my guess. So thank you, Tom. We need to get you a label printer, sir. But thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll work out the final one with you later on. But yes, thank you very much. So at least I know that, yeah, that has to be New Harlem. Yeah, absolutely. This has to be New Harlem. Okay, I'm going to put you here so I know what you are. So that only leaves whatever this first one is, which I have no idea. Let me know what the first one is, Tom. Yeah, let me know what the first one is. So we've nailed 3 of the 4, so that should be easy. Okay, so that's a quick little decant unboxing. Thank you for sending me some of those juices I do not have in the collection, except for Amber Absolute, which I absolutely love. So let's talk a bit about Edition's Rare Veni from the house of Histoires de Parfums. So it came out a decade ago, and the only thing I can think of when I think of the word Veni is Veni Vidi Vici, which is a very popular phrase attributed to Julius Caesar originally, actually, which basically translates to I came, I saw, I won. And he said that, I think he wrote that. Julius Caesar, you know, if you go back through history, one of the reasons why he is so sort of, I think, stayed so popular throughout so many people's memory is because he actually, in his diary, he wrote almost like a play-by-play of what was going on back to the Senate. And of course, he always kind of aggrandized what was going on to make himself out to be the hero. Actually, very smart politics, if you will, right? So there's this work that many people don't know what happened, except for what he wrote happened at the time. So very interesting kind of backstory on Julius Caesar. But basically it says, it's basically like coming, seeing the challenge, and then overcoming the challenge, if you will. I came, I saw, I won, right? That's the only thing about Veni I can think about. Otherwise, I have no clue what it actually means, what it means in this context. But this fragrance is sort of a spicy oriental. And the first thing that you're going to notice right out of the gate, first sniff of this fragrance, to me, is the cinnamon. The cinnamon is very prominent. It's very warming. It has this very cajoling-like effect, if you will. And it sort of joins into the party with cardamom very quickly and early on, right? You're going to get a lot of cardamom. So even though cinnamon comes first, cardamom kind of overtakes the cinnamon to my nose as the first couple minutes move on. And cardamom is usually seen as a cooler spice, but in this case, it kind of has, it works with the cinnamon in a way where it keeps the fragrance smelling very warm. And then to join everything together, to link everything up, is this lavender, okay? And the lavender makes it smell slightly creamy, but it also makes it smell slightly familiar, okay? And what's interesting about that is, on top of that lavender, there's a little bit of this medicinal-like aspect that seems to hit you, right? So the lavender makes it smell like something you've smelled before, because lavender is just so common. It's so ubiquitous in masculine perfumery now. This is a unisex fragrance, by the way. Rare Veni is unisex, but there are some very masculine notes. As you can see, I'm talking about cardamom, I'm talking about lavender. Pretty soon we're going to talk about carnation, which is like the most masculine flower in my opinion. But it is a unisex fragrance. There's other things in here like vanilla and benzoin and resins and stuff like that. But a lot of these notes in here, I think, lean pretty masculine, if you will. And so there's something slightly medicinal in the top when you first spray. And it almost, you know what it reminds me of? From the, my father gave me some cardamom tea that he actually purchased from one of the local Arabic shops. And there's almost like this, imagine like this resinous cardamom tea mixing with the sort of cinnamon. And to add to that, and where the fragrance really starts to take a turn and begins to become less and less mass appealing, is this galbanum note. So galbanum is a resin. Also, there's this very resinous feel. I don't know what other resins are in here, but the fragrance wears very resinous on the skin. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely get the resinous aspect of it, but the galbanum sort of comes in and amplifies the cardamom, and to my nose is what I think is happening. And again, I'm no professional on it. I only had one 5 ml decant, but to my nose, it seems like the cardamom sort of grows in strength and almost turns greener as the minutes go by. So it turns greener and greener, and I can't really tell, to be honest with you, whether it's the cardamom, green cardamom that's really coming through, this sort of cardamom, you know, heavy green smell coming through, or whether it's the greenery of the galbanum, which is a sort of green resin. And that is pushing the fragrance to smell more and more green, more and more outdoorsy, if you will. Either way, it's a beautiful, very, very well done, very competently done opening, okay? And the other note that makes the fragrance stand out, so there's a couple notes that make the fragrance stand out. The galbanum is one. The other one is the saffron. And I know what you're probably thinking when you hear the word saffron. You're probably instantly thinking like a rose oud saffron, right? Middle Eastern style fragrance. And if you've been sniffing fragrances for the last 10 years or so, you'll see the saffron note has changed drastically over those last 10 years and how it's used. Nowadays, I always think saffron gives off this like Middle Eastern signal. You know, we are doing a Middle Eastern fragrance. Here's the saffron kind of thing, right? Fragrances nowadays are very legible. You know, they want you to know what you're smelling. And so this saffron note, though, was done in 2013. So before this is right about 10 years old, right? So a lot's happened in perfumery in the last decade. And this saffron note doesn't feel like they're trying to do a Middle Eastern saffron, which is very rare nowadays. Many fragrances that have that saffron note are trying to do a oud saffron or something like that nowadays. This is a little bit different. And it actually makes it stand out because of that. When they put this out in 10 years ago, it probably wasn't that different. But now, with everything that's happened in the last decade, the rise and fall of oud, well, not fall of oud, but I mean, oud was so popular over the last decade. And so you think about all of the rose oud saffrons that have come out, and this is kind of done a little bit different. It makes it feel less common, makes it feel a little bit unique. That's why I say the galbanum is a unique note in here. The saffron is a very unique note in here to my nose. And it really feels like the fragrance came out at this turning point in perfumery. You know, this fragrance went left and many others went right with that saffron note. But it almost gives it this, to my mind, saffron in this fragrance gives it this very sandy dune, dry-like feel. You know, saffron can have a very chemical-like smell, resinous chemicals. And I did an entire This Is Not a Top 10 video on the note of saffron. If you want to go check that out, you absolutely are free to do so. But if you read the blurb from the brand, it's interesting because they talk about a ship navigating the high seas. So actually, why don't I just read you the blurb? So here's what the brand of Histoires de Parfums says. It says, an attribute of immortal gods and a symbol of wealth, yellow gold, which is the bottle of Veni. See how this is like, here, I'll show you real quick. See how this one's rose gold? This is Rare Fidelis, which I'm going to review very soon. And Rosum, Rare Rosum, is supposedly white gold. So Fidelis is the rose gold, and Veni is the yellow gold. Okay, so that's the way that they kind of set this advertisement up, if you will, right? And so they're saying that yellow gold, or Rare Veni, offers an epic fragrance that is worthy of the Odyssey. From its bow of galbanum resin, a ship of pure cardamom navigates the saffron waves of a roaring ambergris sea. Sails of patchouli and vanilla carry her towards a beach strewn with carnations on an unknown island where Gaiac wood waits to be discovered. Amidst the radiant depth of carnation and the excitement of spices, Veni represents a voyage worthy of the greatest ancient pieces and dedicated to all who have a thirst for adventure and the unknown. That's straight from the brand. So you're thinking ship sailing on the ocean, right? Ambergris, maybe there's a salty oceanic quality to this. There just absolutely isn't, not to my nose. I'm going to have to politely disagree with that little write-up. And I personally think that the way that this smells to me is much less about a ship navigating the high seas and much more sort of this sandy, duney like smell from the way that the saffron is used. It gives off this sort of desert like vibe in my head, but it doesn't smell like a Middle Eastern fragrance, if that makes sense. It may slightly hint at some of that just because saffron, I think, just gives us that association from the last decade of how it was used. But it doesn't really go in the heavy Middle Eastern direction. So if you don't like that direction, fear not. Veni can still be a sample or a try for you. And the image that kind of came to my mind, if you've ever played The Legend of Zelda, once you get the first one that came out on, I guess, the Switch or whatever, the first Zelda on the Switch, which was like the huge hit. I didn't like the new one as much, believe it or not. But I think the first one was the greatest game of all time that came out on the Switch. I forget what it was called, the exact name of it. But you could shield surf. And imagine like shield surfing on like a sandy dune, right? That's really the image that the saffron gave me with this. And what ends up happening as you move more and more into the heart, right, is this beautiful, and I mean beautifully executed, carnation note comes to the forefront, okay? So yes, the saffron's there, but this carnation and gaiac wood begin to come to the forefront. And carnation is one of my all-time favorite flowers for men. It was actually heavily used in vintage masculine perfumery, right? And so here, the carnation has a major role in this fragrance, at least to me. And if you've been watching my channel, if you follow my channel regularly, a few days back, I recently reviewed a fragrance by Amouage by Karine Vincent-Spenner called Opus 3. And Opus 3 had a brilliant carnation note in there. And, you know, that really hinted at vintage retro style perfumery, right? This does something very similar in that it does it differently, but it still gives you a little bit of hint of that throwback to the olden days. I think actually Rare Veni is a little bit more traditionally masculine than Opus 3 was, but they both use the carnation note in beautiful aspects. They highlight amazing parts of the carnation. And what ends up happening is that there's many facets of the carnation note that tend to show themselves. Many times the carnation is sort of green and spicy and can bring in this clove-like smell because there's a note of eugenol. And eugenol is found heavily in clove and heavily in carnation. So if you've smelled some of these old school masculines, like for example, this one is the one that came to mind, Pierre Cardin's Enigme. So just imagine Pierre Cardin's Enigme, right? It's very carnation, clove, heavy fragrance for men from the early 90s, right? Slight fougere elements as well here. And just imagine blending it, okay, with something like 1899 by the same house, which has Spice Bomb characteristics, right? So imagine 1899, which I'll review on the channel as well one of these days. Imagine sort of the way that the spices and the cinnamon from 1899 sort of interplay with each other, right? And so 1899, if you've never smelled it, also came out in 2013. You guys know I love sort of putting pieces together when fragrances come out in similar years. So 1899 came out in 2013, as did Rare Veni, okay? And so the same year. But what they've done here is they've added a little bit more of black pepper and iris, right? So there's iris and black pepper mixing with that cinnamon. But the cinnamon note in here reminds me heavily, heavily of the cinnamon note in Rare Veni. So imagine taking 1899 and blending it with like a vintage masculine. And that's sort of going to get you into the ballpark of Rare Veni. The carnation note here is beautiful, really is brilliant. It feels very dusty, sort of balmy, if you will. And I love it. I think it's a great combination to take something like this, which is very Spice Bomb, you know, inspired and then blend it with something that really hints to the past. And they did a great job with Rare. I don't know who the perfumer is on either of these because it just has Gerard Guiselin's name as the creative director. I'm sure there's a perfumer in the background helping him create some of these, but they did a great job with these fragrances. And as the fragrance continues to dry, what ends up happening is there's this note of toffee, which the brand writes about. And Parfumo doesn't show toffee, but they show caramel, okay? Now, I can't really say I get either caramel or toffee. What I do get is a coffee accord, okay? So if you've smelled Rare Fidelis, you'll know that coffee accord that you get in Rare Fidelis. It kind of shows up, for me, that coffee accord kind of shows up in Veni, in Rare Veni. And actually, I'm really glad it's not a toffee or a caramel-like accord, because when I think about those notes, I think of sort of very buttery, sugary, sweet-like notes in the base. And that worried me. When I saw that caramel note or that toffee note, I was like, ooh, where is this going to go? But it's almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I've been wearing it all day on my skin, and I don't really see anything that the sweetness in the base would really put anyone off. It doesn't seem super sweet. There is some sweetness here because of the vanilla, but it's not like, you know, sugary type vanilla you would expect in a cookie or anything like that. And they mention ambergris in the note. They specifically mention ambergris. Even in the write-up, it said a wave of ambergris. And I mean, I could see it. I don't think you're going to be able to go in here and go, oh, ambergris. No, I mean, ambergris, I think, tends to just have like an effect on some of the other notes. Like it makes them somewhat sparkle. It shines a spotlight on some of them, right? And the ones that it shines a spotlight on, to me, in the base would be something like the patchouli and the musk. And it really feels like the patchouli and the musk, maybe with a little bit of the oak moss, a little bit of that gaiac wood, which gives it some of that very slightly smoky, you know, woodiness, very slightly smoky. And the ambergris just kind of shines a light on some of these notes into the dry down. It makes them sparkle. It makes them feel a little bit high class. But really, overall, I think a very competent and well done fragrance. It's not one of those fragrances that is going to blow people away. It's not one of the fragrances that people are going to write about, you know, how unique and groundbreaking it was or anything like that. But for this style of perfume, if you like the way that the cinnamon is done in 1899 by the same house, I would urge you to try Rare Veni. I think it's it's one of those where I would like a bottle, but it's also one of those where I wouldn't pay for a bottle. Just where I'm at right now in my journey, I would just wear this, to be honest with you. I'd wear 1899. And you can see I still have probably a good 12 mil left. That's more than enough for me. But even though I think I prefer Rare Veni to 1899 because of the fact that it goes a little bit more in that vintage masculine like feel, right? So if you smelled some of these type of fragrances from the past that go heavy on clove, you'll get in the ballpark of where that carnation green, spicy carnation accord is kind of going. So very interesting stuff. Very glad to get to know it. So again, double thank you to Nick for very kindly sending me these decants. I still have maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 more from him. And then I think I'll have gone through all of them on the channel. So big thank you. Otherwise, there's a bunch of these I never would have been able to talk about on the channel without you, Nick. And big shout out to Tom for sending me stuff like this. I think we have agreed that this one actually was New Harlem. I mean, it definitely smells of a New York breakfast, so this must be New Harlem. But thank you, Tom. Very much appreciate that. Hope to talk about those on the channel very soon. So cheers, everyone. Let me know if you have experience with these Histoires de Parfum Rare line, which I plan on discussing more in the future. Again, things like Rare Fidelis, and then these two, Rare Amberem and Petroleum, will be discussed on the channel very soon. So anyways, appreciate everyone watching, commenting, all the stuff you do to help the channel. It is very much appreciated. So cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.